When did someone challenge you at something you were an expert at? Kinda the reverse. For me, I'm a physical education teacher and I had a student that took a pretty bad tumble in class. Hit her head on the wall. Pretty clear concussion symptoms. So we get her stable. Call mom and dad to come get her. Dad shows up and I start going through the concussion symptoms and treatments with him. Letting him know that a doctor's visit is probably in order. Blah blah blah. I keep going on and on about concussions. He just politely nods and thanks me. He takes daughter and leaves. And I see my principal standing behind me and he can barely contain his laughter. Turns out dad is an emergency room doctor. And he just sat there while his daughter's gym teacher gave him medical advice. I'm a hospice RN but have worked for years in a number of different nursing fields. If someone took the time to explain medical stuff to me, and was clearly passionate and correct in their teaching, I would gladly sit there and pretend to be a layman. That sorts of stuff makes me happy. Can't really explain why. Medieval Fair. 2002. Carney running the fencing game picks me out of the crowd for being tall. And challenges me to a free bout against the master. Not a lot of people fence. So his gambit probably worked most of the time. But when he handed me that saber, I handed him his ass. A coworker of mine was on the fencing team for Notre Dame when they won a national championship. I think if you gave people 100 guesses they wouldn't pick this guy. It happens a lot lately. I'm a microbiologist. So the number of people who have suddenly taken an interest in the subject in order to be confidently wrong about it is pretty upsetting. I'm going for a PhD in genetics, not exactly an expert at microbiology. But I have a strong background, and the amount of times a day I mentally facepalm at people's ignorance is staggering. My favorites are the anti-mask crowd. Did you know that masks simultaneously block oxygen and let in viruses? Also, if you wear a mask for any prolonged period of time, it will cause brain damage. It would be almost funny if I weren't high risk. While I was in high school I was the reigning city fencing champion. In both the youth and adult tournaments. My high school decided to do a school-wide fencing unit for phys ed. And the coach they brought in to teach all of the students was my actual coach. During my classes, my coach naturally brought me up to help demonstrate the various moves. But for some reason one of my classmates didn't understand that I wasn't chosen at random. He started talking shitty about how I looked like I didn't know what I was doing. And how he could probably kick my ass in a duel. Now, he actually was pretty good for a guy who'd never fenced before. And at the first opportunity to actually have a bout, he decided to have a go at me. I picked him apart and did not give up a single touch. And used the opportunity to practice my parry and ripostes. I admit, I took a bit of sadistic pleasure in thoroughly beating him. Afterwards, my coach made a point of congratulating the other guy for doing so well against the city champ. Which changed his attitude considerably. Color. It sounds weird but anytime the color of something comes up and someone tries to correct me. I've been a commercial printing press operator for 20 years. I can spot very subtle differences in colors that most people can't. I have a coworker who one time looked at an internal web app we were building and he said the header isn't centered. He was right. It was off by like 2px. Even after he told me. And told me the direction it wasn't centered I couldn't see it. This same guy can do the same thing with color. I really enjoy working with him. Although it can be frustrating at times when I can't see what he sees. My father-in-law challenged me about the capabilities of DVD. Specifically he claimed that you could only have widescreen video, not 4:3, on a DVD disc. At the time I was employed as a DVD author. I authored the very first commercially available feature on Scenarist. I am literally acknowledged in the first edition of DVD Demystified as an expert. I had already by that time personally authored literally hundreds of DVDs with 4:3 video. He knew all of the above at the time. Yet still insisted I was wrong. I have been wrapping my family's Christmas presents since a very young age. It's the perfect activity to focus my crippling perfectionism with my overall anxiety-riddled self to create a beautiful masterpiece that would make anyone think twice about discovering the mysteries beneath the colorful paper and bows. I have just always loved to do it, and my mom was more than happy to not spend hours wrapping presents. Flash forward to the company Christmas party in my late 20s. We are split into teams to compete for random prizes. I am up for the next game. I had no idea what I would be doing. I see a big cardboard box, a necktie, wrapping paper, scissors, tape and a bow. I know what's about to go down and I am here for it. It's a blind present wrapping challenge. My competitors start talking about how they can wrap presents fast, and I sit there silently staring down that cardboard box, knowing fully that the crowd is in for a show. Blindfolds, neckties, go on. We have a partner that isn't blindfolded that is supposed to give verbal directions. Just before the timer starts, I lean over to my partner and say quietly, "Are you ready for this?" And she just say, "What?" Bam. Timer starts. Partner tries to give directions at first and quickly realizes I'm way ahead of her. Before anyone else can even get their paper cut, I've got my box wrapped, taped, and bowed. I even folded the ends in fancy to have the triangles meet. And that, my friends, is how I earned the most satisfying $10 Starbucks gift card of my life and earned the title of Rap Master. I used to play fighting games competitively all over the world. Never made one of the top slots, but I could usually hold my own. One of my best game was Super Street Fighter 2. Went to a bar by work one day and they just so happened to have an SNES set up with SF2. I order a drink, pick random characters and just FCK around for a bit. Some guy comes in and immediately starts bragging to his date that he's the best SF2 player ever. I asked him to play some games against me and offered to buy him a drink if he could beat 2 out of 3. 12 games later I am completed hammered and he finally gives up and leaves. Still don't remember getting home that night. By no means an expert, I'd probably rate in the 1500s. But I've played chess since I was a small child and was the best player in the middle school chess club. The guy who owned the pool hall me and my juvenile delinquent friends hung out in was talking about how dumb kids are these days and said he bet nobody and my group of hoodlums could play chess. I beat him soundly. Then again in the rematch. Haha, one time I played my brother-in-law's friend who was a cocky member of some chess club. I started with a super aggressive opening. My brothers and I randomly read a lot of chess books growing up, and he had no idea what to do. I completely destroyed him. Not quite this, but I tried to learn piano years ago. I bought a keyboard and learned the first movement of Moonlight Sonata, but it was literally all I could play. I had just started a new job as a chef in a fancy hotel. Had been there maybe a month and was at the Christmas party. I sat at a piano and the head chef pointed me out, laughing and said, "Look at Spliff Lizard. You can play the piano." I thought I'll just act confident and play the only thing I can, so was like, "Yeah, I can. I've played for years," and he said, "Oh really? Play Moonlight Sonata then." Couldn't have gone better. He was gobsmacked and I never told anyone there that I was actually crap at piano except that one song, lol. A beginning writer asked some advice about a basic drafting method. So I offered my point of view. Some tough guy decided to butt in and say that what I said was proof I'm not a real writer and it was obvious I would never be published. At that time, the second or third book in my trilogy was about to be released. I asked the guy not to tell my editor that I wasn't a real writer. My old roommate once told my uncle all about wine. She didn't know that he teaches classes about wine. He was a real good sport about it. One time I was buying a bottle of wine at grocery outlet. And the cashier was like, "That's a really good wine. I don't know a lot about wine." And I had just picked it out because it was red and cost $3. So I was like, "Oh yeah? Great. I'm checking out the label to see what this good wine is." And he's like, "Yeah, I just had one of those green bottle wines last week. It was fantastic." And then I realized that he thought wines were classified by what color of glass the bottle was made from. My roommate who took a Psych 101 class at a prestigious university told me, a master's level therapist. That the movie Split, with James McAvoy, was an accurate depiction of multi-personality disorder. Double quote. I wouldn't say I'm an expert at push-ups, but I've worked in the fitness industry for 20 years and work out myself fairly regularly. Doing 20 push-ups isn't anything to me. I was at a party that was attended primarily by what I would call hipsters. A guy, who had been drinking a fair amount, challenged me to 20 push-ups as fast as possible for $20. I won and got $20. Then another said he would do the same bet if we went right away, I guess thinking I was kinda tired. I beat him and got another $20. A few minutes later another guy did the same bet. It was an easy $60. I'm no expert, but people never assume I can play pool. I grew up with my parents going to the pub. So as an early teen would play a lot of pool and got pretty good. There's been a number of occasions where I've got us a round of drinks or stuck it to some knob who's hogging the table. For most of 2020 so far, I am an infectious disease expert, PhD from a microbiology and immunology program, and suddenly all my former high school classmates think they know more than me. They watch the news and learn a new vocabulary. And they bestow themselves a doctorate. Welcome to my hell. I'm a sysadmin. My dad is in electronics. Don't get me wrong, his level of knowledge is well above most when it comes to computers, but it doesn't touch mine, and it sure as shit doesn't when he asks me to help him with very technical problems. Yet he will still insist on operating the machine, pecking at the keyboard and moving at a glacial pace while I tell him to click here. No, there. On that. No, not that one. I don't care if you're just checking F-king, click on what I told you to. Also, I type stupidly fast. No surprise. Yet if I make a mistake he'll immediately let me know how I'm so slow because of all those mistakes. I make very few and usually he sees them cause I'm on an unfamiliar keyboard. And it's corrected before he even opens his mouth. Don't get me wrong, my dad is awesome, but holy shit is he bad at letting someone else be the expert. Not an expert. Or even certified. But there's a specific kind of cargo parachute called a small airdrop training bundle. I can pack these correctly and by the book in less than 15 minutes. I was challenged by someone who had 5 years experience on me to see who could pack the most in an hour. I had 6 while he was trying to argue with the quality control guy, who has been packing parachutes for 20 years, over how correct he did step 3. I had a good day beating the guy who just so happened to be the worst rigger in the world. The property management company for my homeowners association insisted that I had received emails that I never received. So I asked them to prove that I had received them. They said they're sure I received them. I'm a software engineer and at the time I had just finished an enterprise email delivery system, like an in-house constant contact. I knew the rules of the ConSpam Act by heart. I knew exactly how their system worked. So this real BTCH of a property manager said I know how email works. You wouldn't understand. I mentally did the arrogant knuckle crack and started to explain, very methodically, how email delivery works and how they'd track various actions. I spent about 5 minutes detailing my credentials and why I was absolutely certain they had never sent me the emails they alleged I received. When I was finished, the HOA board just agreed to waive the fines. This happens to me a lot. I had the unique situation of working in manufacturing in China for 7 years. I moved back 3 years ago and constantly have people explain to me why manufacturing could easily come back to the States. I emphatically tell them they are f***ing high. Someone once tried to insist that our state didn't sell alcohol on Sundays. I've spent over a decade working in restaurants and I'm also an alcoholic. Which he knew about but still insisted on arguing with me about it. Maybe y'all were both right. Texas does not allow liquor sales on Sunday, beer and wine after 12:00 but no liquor at all. All the liquor stores are closed so a person can't go buy a bottle of whiskey. But you can still get mixed drinks or shots at restaurants and bars. Went to a couple's night once and the guy had wall-to-wall movies and framed posters in his basement. Super into it. Mentioned I used to be a movie nerd but not so much anymore. He challenged us to a movie trivia board game. kinda in a condescending way, and I tried to politely decline, but my GF insisted we play. They went first. Missed the question, then we ran the table. Never heard from them again. Lemc. Krull. The arcade video game. A guy tried to hit on me at a house party by challenging me to a game, but he knew he had made a mistake when I said, "Sure. I haven't played in a while." Double quote. It was my boyfriend's house. And his game. We still had fun playing though. Anytime someone wants to play me at Smash Brothers, I'm nowhere near good enough to go toe to toe at major tournaments. But I can hold my own at local tournaments and usually end up in the top 5 out of 20-30 players. Which, when I go to a party or hang out at a friend's house and they get cocky about their skills, usually ends in them getting angry by the end of the night and never wanting to play Smash with me again. I wouldn't say an expert, but cycling. My younger brother has a personal vendetta against me. Tried to tell him riding 100 miles not easy. He said, "Man, I can do 100 miles. I was like, "Okay, I stay with you the first 50 miles. He didn't make it past 10. Lol. Edit. He literally pissed me off calling cycling shit. I mean, he literally said that shit easy. When I was cycling every day, I could do 100 miles in a day. I did. A few times. The first 40 miles or so are easy enough. The next 20 aren't so bad. It goes downhill pretty quickly from there." I'm going to date myself here, but I was an undergrad when the video game Halo was released. I never really played video games. But at the time I had a boyfriend, I am a girl, who was really into it. We played. A lot. Even went to some college-based tournament games and did well. Fast forward some years later and my husband and I are at a house party. Someone turns on the Xbox and was looking for a fourth for Halo. My husband volunteers me. The guys were visibly not thrilled but played along. I wiped the floor with them. Eventually they decided to team up 3 against me. Still destroyed them. The whole party ended up crowding around us to watch. It was a great night. Close bracket. I'm an Academy Award winning sound mixer and almost everyone on film sets think they know my job better than me. Well, I am sure they have very nice and expensive stereo systems at home and listen to music all the time. Thus they are experts. Close bracket. But seriously, just me dabbling a little bit into figuring out how to properly stage a room for home theater is absurdly complex. I can't imagine the complexity of what you're doing. I hesitate to say expert, but compared to this person I was a savant. I did a few papers throughout school on GMOs for some presentations, so while I am not an expert I know more than a random Joe. Especially at the time. Well, I remember getting into an argument with a stereotypical college hipster about how unnatural GMOs were and how we should stop using them. Just your usual buzzwords, chemicals are bad and the like. Being able to systematically shut her down until it became I don't feel like they are safe. Was pretty nice though. And for the record, I don't generally revel in this sort of thing. But if you could hear the tone she used, I think you'd understand. A former co-worker challenged me to a cheese eating competition at an office get-together. Little did he know I f***ing love cheese and am the type of person to eat shredded cheese straight out the bag at 3 AM. He wimped out after 15 cubes of cheese from the deli platter while I basically cleared my whole section. Teacher thought I was asleep in class. But I'm a great listener when I close my eyes. Asked me to wake up and repeat what he just said. I said verbatim what he was teaching and he just bent his ruler stick and carried on. As did I with my head down. I had something similar happen, but I was actually asleep. And she wanted me to do the math problems on the board. Walked up, did the problems. Went and laid my head back down. Then got sent to the vice principal office. Female mechanical engineer. My life is pretty much people challenging me on things I'm an expert on. Yes. Hard agree. I hated attending hacking events and have random strangers challenge me on how much I know. I don't know why. So they could file me away as a fake coder girl or something. I've just started channeling Ron Swanson and saying I know more than you when someone tries it. Hula hooping. They resorted to throwing stuff at my hoop because I kept going like the Energizer Bunny. It's also funny when someone who has never done origami before starts taking their shoes off to follow along. Using my feet instead of my hands was easy for me. But don't think you can start there. When we were having a couple drinks on Friday after work, I was challenged to a shooting by a colleague. Little did he know I've been shooting air rifles competitively ever since I was 13. Not to say I am the greatest, but I've made it to the national finals for my country multiple times and came 3rd and 6th. I have all the special clothes and gear and such you need to make it to such a level. The next day, Saturday, we showed up to the range I always shoot at. It's not a day I usually train, so not many people recognize me. I beat his ass left, right and center that day. Out of 600 points, he scored about 200-250 if I remember correctly. I got about 580, which was about average of what I used to shoot. He had to buy me a fancy bottle of whiskey and now we shoot every 2 or 3 weeks together. Fun times. I'm sorry if it's hard to follow. English is my second language. Excel. I built a complicated but highly effective Excel workbook to calculate the how to price parts for a top customer of ours. I labeled it, added a legend and color-coded things for users. The user just needed to input the part type, material and target price. It would auto-calculate everything you needed to submit a quote. The sales manager from another factory hated it and refused to use it. He said it pointless and a waste of company time. We got into a lengthy argument over it. He ended up proceeding without using it and ended up submitting conflicting prices to the customer. The customer noticed we were adding additional profits to certain parts and we lost a lot of business. I sent him a screenshot of what he should have used with my pointless document and asked if he'd like me to teach him how to use it. I managed to salvage the relationship with the customer but then left the company not long after for a better position. Not me, but my friend used to ride a unicycle as a kid. He worked construction and they were working at a house that had an old unicycle. The other workers tried riding it and immediately fell off. My friend walked over to it and inspected the unicycle like it was the first time he ever saw one. Them said it didn't look that difficult. They all laughed at him and he said he thought he could ride it. Eventually one of them bet him $100 he couldn't ride it. He jumped on it and immediately rode down the street. By no means an expert at all, but I have a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, training for about 5 years. One of my mates was always trying to catch me unawares, and he would randomly try to tackle me or grab me to see what I'd do. A bunch of us went bouldering, and on the crash mats he double legs me out of nowhere, and then was super upset when I put him straight in a triangle choke. He never tried again after that. But like, you suddenly tackle me, I'm going to respond pretty automatically. All this went down before I even realized what had happened and who was trying to wrestle me. I felt bad afterwards. But it's kind of what you get for randomly tackling girls out of nowhere. It was honestly like a movie. When I was in college you were limited to only a few guest passes, so it was pretty common to ask people on your floor to sign in friends. So late at night while we were playing Mario Kart, someone knocked on our door to ask us to sign in their friends. We didn't really feel like going downstairs and dealing with that, so we hesitated. That's when he said, if I beat you in Mario Kart, will you sign them in? We of course agreed. Little did he know we played every day all semester long. He was really convinced he would be us. We placed first, second and third and he ended up in 12th. We still signed in his friends though. Guitar Hero. Work held a Christmas party at a venue and set up the game for fun and prizes. I was the second oldest, 47F, person there. All the younger employees were going ham and having a great time. I wasn't going to play until the prize was $500 for last person standing. I walked away $500 richer and also a legend. 9. Not an expert, but I knew just enough to make somebody else look stupid, if that counts. Had a guy at a bar try to claim that there were literally no female professional artists prior to the 20th century. I had just finished a year-long art thesis paper that discussed how female artists were written out of history by male counterparts or art historians going all the way back to the Italian Renaissance. It was like one of those moments you think about in the shower later on in the day. But it actually got to happen for me in real life and it was fantastic. No expert or master electrician, but had a guy demanding I put can lights in his house without cans. These were not the canless kind either. He just straight up didn't want to pay for cans. Even bought the lights by the pallet on some massive sale. Real cheap ass who wouldn't listen to anything I said about safety, legality, etc. I walked out and told him good luck with his inspection.